Good morning. It is Friday, February 26, 2021. I'm Pastor Thor Ramsey with Center Church. This is Gospel for Five, where we take 5 minutes out of our day and focus on the gospel because Jesus is the gospel. We've been going through the book of Proverbs. We're in verse 10 here. My son, and you would be my son in this case. This is God's word spoken to you through King Solomon. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. So one of the first principles we learn in life is that there are people who do bad things and they try to entice other people to do those things with them. That's called peer pressure. That's exactly what that is. If sinners entice you, do not consent. So don't give your consent. Now, how do you know people are enticing you to do something that is unwise or wrong or wicked? Well, the only way we know those things is, has God given us wisdom? There's an implicit understanding in the book of Proverbs that there is good and evil in this world, and you as a human being can distinguish between good and evil. And we need wisdom to do that. So if sinners entice you, do not consent. If they say, come with us, let us lie in wait for blood. Now, this is basically gang violence in one sense. This is what we're talking about here. Now, most of us aren't enticed in this way, but it still applies to other areas where we can be enticed to do things. But this is specifically a type of gang violence. We're going to gang up on these people. You know, throughout the ages, it may not have been called gang violence, but that's the idea. You have an individual or a group of people, and they're trying to entice you to join them. They're trying to increase their numbers, their gang. Why? Because they're going to lie in wait. They're going to ambush the innocent without reason. Right? Meaning this, like, there's no reason, there's no motive other than we want what they have. Instead of going out and working hard to get their own, they just want what they have. Whenever you see that type of reasoning in culture, it's generally not wise. You can see philosophies of life. You can see ideologies who have this idea that we, this gang, will take from these people. Why? Because we want it. Now, in our culture, it gets a little more sophisticated. They try to give reasons for it, but that's what it boils down to. This gang is going to take from this group of people without reason. So what do we have to do? We have to justify our wickedness. Now, in this sense, again, this is really more just along the lines of gang violence, but I'm saying it can get more, gang violence can actually get more sophisticated. In my opinion, that's really what Marxism is. It's gang violence. Right? It's just a more sophisticated form of gang violence, but that's really what it is. Because it's the opposite principle. It's like, hey, why don't you guys work really hard? You can get your own things. You can get a job. You know, it's that whole thing. It's like, it's amazing sometimes when you see the ingenuity and the work that criminals have to do to get their things. Like, why don't you apply that to real life? You know, there's an aspect to criminal behavior that's entrepreneurial, especially if you've witnessed any kind of documentaries or read about the mob. You know, the mobsters, the gangsters. It's like there's a lot of business practices there. It's just all illegally practiced. It's kind of, again, it's just the reason boggles the mind sometimes. So that's why it says it's without reason. Like Sheol or like hell, let us swallow them alive, is what they're saying. Hell swallows you alive, whole. And that's really what this type of mentality is. We're just going to swallow these people whole. We're not going to give them a chance to talk. We're not going to reason with them. We're just going to come in and swallow them whole. And I will say that applies spiritually to you, my friend, whether you believe in hell or not. If you do not know Jesus Christ. Now, if you know Jesus Christ, you should believe in hell. But I will say this to those of you who do not know, if you happen to be watching this and you don't know what your relationship with Jesus Christ is, if you don't believe in hell, that's not the issue, because if you do not come to Christ, one day hell will swallow you whole. That's the same type of principle. And yes, there is a fear in that. But it is not a fear-mongering. Why? You should actually consider that. It would be wise to. It's wise to consider any afterlife scenario, especially from a group saying, you know, we know the one who's died and come back to life. He can tell us what awaits us. And that fear is what? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So hell is not a fear-mongering tactic, my friend. It is to get your attention that you might actually consider your responsibility to your Creator. Now, what's God said to you today? What are you going to do about it?